Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nur Masturina, the first presenter of Group 7, and together we'll be presenting on the topic Ethical Challenges in Preparing Vaccines. Now, first before anything, let us take a look briefly on the steps of preparing vaccines. According to the Ministry of Health Malaysia, manufacturing of vaccines are subjected to the national and international regulatory control and are obligated to meet the specifications of Good Manufacturing Process (GMP). So even though the steps in preparing vaccines vary different according to different type of vaccines, however, there are 4 basic steps involved in vaccines manufacturing. The first step is propagation, where the living organisms used in the vaccine will be multiplied or amplified. The second step is isolation, whereby the living organism will be then separated from the cells or growth media used in the first step. And next will be the purification step, whereby involves removing any adhering materials from the purified organism or taking a portion of the organism to be used in the vaccine. And lastly is to formulate the vaccine by mixing the product in solution until a desired concentration is obtained, and also adding to it several components like preservatives, diluents, adjuvant, and stabilizers. Now, after all these steps, the vaccine can be filled into syringes and packaged for shipping. Well, that's the steps in preparing vaccines. Now, what about ethics? What is ethics? According to Oxford Language Dictionary, ethics are moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Therefore, this presentation will be discussing the several concerns on moral obligations in preparing vaccines.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sharifah Nadia, and today I'll be talking about the ethical issues regarding to vaccine research and testing. So basically, we all know that vaccination have long been the subject of various ethical controversies. The key ethical debates are mostly related to vaccine regulation, development, and use generally revolve around the research and testing. So there are 4 important keys that we have to know about the vaccine research and testing, which is vaccines license, vaccine trials, vaccine effectiveness, and also testing it to what kind of populations. Next is the license of vaccines. Vaccines are licensed and added to immunization schedule after research, testing, and monitoring, which is then coordinated and reviewed by the National Vaccine Program and other key vaccine committees such as Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. To be licensed, basically vaccines need to go through many years of research, and it has and must pass through rigorous safety and the efficacy standards. The vaccine development and research process includes diverse experts from many scientific and social disciplines, such as from epidemiology, immunology, and pharmaceutical companies. So next is the vaccine trials and tested to the populations. Most of the ethical issues come out when the researchers disagree about whom to include in the clinical trials. Clinical trials is important to test for the vaccine's effectiveness. Testing vaccines in vulnerable populations such as to children or way too elderly people also raises the ethical concerns. Thus, it is important to understand the vaccine safety and efficacy in various populations. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next, let us proceed with healthcare system. Different countries have different healthcare system, and different countries have its own vaccine requirement and rules and regulation. As for example, a Muslim country is obligated to have a halal sources of vaccine. Other than that, some country need a vaccine that must be proved by a high minimum amount of trial stage vaccination. Other than that, vaccines are suitable for countries that have certain disease. Thus, The preparations of vaccine should also have done review towards the targeting country to supply their vaccine by following the requirement of the country.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Hurriyatun Najla binti Badrul Nizam, metric number 1911940, and the ethical challenge in preparing a vaccine for the next is the substances and its effectiveness. So we know that the researcher or maybe the scientist going through many years to use the proper substances that will get along with the public health, immunology and epidemiology standard. So they have to standardize the standard to get along with this public health, immunology and epidemiology. So next, they will put clinical trials multiple times to test its effectiveness. So it will require many times and many efforts, and also require many costs. And then they might fail to provide any cautious steps before testing it to samples. And we know that the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine must be achieved before it consume it to the whole population, to make sure the side effects after the vaccination can be minimized. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Ashikin binti Muhammad Zawawi. Now I will explain about the community engagement and mobilization. The first one is vaccine hesitancy. People may fear the side effects of vaccines. This is especially true since there is uncertainty about the disease and vaccines. Field staff, volunteers, and community members can facilitate trust with communities and community leaders, playing an important role in providing accurate and timely health information. We can facilitate community-led solutions that address fears and perception and build trust in vaccines. Two-way dialogue is critical for these activities. The second one, vulnerability of child participants in research. In vaccine trials conducted in developing countries, children are particularly vulnerable as research participants because of the poverty, underdevelopment, and high disease burden they experience. Where trials in pediatric population are critical to the development or evaluation of vaccines, every effort should be made to address the vulnerability of children as participants so that such trials are implemented in an ethical manner. The last one, ethical and scientific imperative to conduct vaccine trials among children in developing countries with high disease burden. It is not ethical to conduct research on children if the relevant investigation could be done equally well among adults. However, there is a huge disease burden in developing world and a deficiency of research being done that directly relates to the health needs of children. The disease burden among children in developing countries challenge the international community as well as national and local communities to find the appropriate balance between the need for urgency and the need to meet safety and other medical requirements in evaluating vaccines in pediatric population. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter.
In preparing a vaccine, ethical concerns should be considered in every aspect, not only in the safety of the substances used, but also during researching and testing, how the product is engaged and mobilized to the community, and in meeting the different requirements of variety healthcare system all around the world. In Islam, there is a concept called Hablum Minallah and Hablum Minan Nas. This concept teaches Muslims to maintain good relationships with other human beings. Therefore, a good Muslim should take into consideration the ethical challenges in preparing vaccines and dealing with it in the best moral able to be practiced, since it involves other human beings.